Hello my friends and welcome back to a new reading wrap-up video. Today I want to talk about the 5 books that I read in the month of April and I hope that you enjoy. The first book that I finished in April was The Rose Code by Quinn, and I can say finally because I was supposed to finish this book in March, but I had to carry it over into April because I did not finish it on time. So finally I did, and I can say I loved it. It's a historical fiction novel about World War II. We are in England throughout the entire book and we see how the war was viewed there, how the people experienced it. In particular, we have 3 main characters here who are all women who, couldn't be more different. Their names are Osla, Mab, and Beth, and each one of them is very unique, but each one of them grew up in a different part of England, in a different class of society, so they have very different backgrounds. Their personalities are different, but their paths cross when all 3 of them start working at Bletchley Park and become friends there. Bletchley Park is a secret military facility by the English military. It's where a lot of very interesting, unique characters work on breaking German military code. So nobody there can really talk about work outside of work and even with coworkers. They're working on these German codes using special equipment and code breakers. And it's very technical, but I can say I learned a lot about these code breakings. I don't know if I understood everything perfectly, but it was very important for the British military to learn about these codes to win the war. And Bletchley Park in real life during the World War played a big part in bringing Germany down and maybe ending the war earlier than it would have ended otherwise. We also have a second timeline in this book which plays a few years after the end of World War II, I think in the year 1947, yes. And in this year, we're still with Osla, Mab, and Beth, but they're not friends anymore. We learned that something horrible has happened that has broke them apart, and they're basically enemies now. One of the 3 is also living in a mental health facility because she had a breakdown. She's considered mentally ill, and so a very difficult situation. And she reaches out to her former friends, now enemies, at some point and tells them that there was a spy at some point working at Bletchley Park and that she's in this facility for no reason, that somebody put her there to shut her up. So the other 2 have now to decide, do they believe their former friend? Do they want to help somebody who has become their enemy? Or was this just the ramblings of a crazy person? So it's a very interesting, these 2 timelines, and we jump back and forth between the 2. And so throughout the book, we learn what happened to the 3 friends, why they became enemies, and we find out if the friend in the mental health ward spoke the truth. So that's the story. And I want to say that to me, the book was, yes, about World War II, and I learned about military codes and all that, but really, in essence, it was about friendship, about these 3 women. It was about love, finding love, what it means during war if you're in love with somebody who is in the military, maybe abroad fighting, maybe dying while you are here in England waiting for them. It is about death, about grief, and essentially about women and their role in the war, about sexism, and what was expected of them, what their roles were, and how they viewed themselves and their responsibilities. So very interesting to me. I just love the 3 characters, and I cannot pick one where I say this was the main character. All 3 of them had very unique stories. And this is basically the kind of book where afterwards you want to Google for like 2 hours and find out what was real, what was fiction. And thankfully the author wrote a little text here in the book that's called About the Book, where she explains what she researched in her process of writing this novel, what is real, what was fiction. And I was so amazed to see how much of this actually happened. And I'm not just talking about historic events or this military facility, but I'm talking about actual people. Like these 3 women, in some form or shape, they all existed, and these are real stories. So I was blown away by that. And overall, I don't really know what rating to give this book, whether 5 stars and 4 stars. Usually I give 5 stars to books that moved me in some way, that made me speechless, where afterwards I couldn't believe what I was reading. I didn't have it that much with this book, but at the same time, there is nothing for me to criticize. I mean, these are 556 pages and there was not one page too much. I enjoyed every single one of them. I absorbed it and couldn't wait to find out how the story ends. So really, there speaks nothing against the 5 stars, and I can't even explain what it is that holds me back. Maybe a few weeks from now I'll think differently about it and I'll say this is a clear 5-star. For now I'll say it's 4.9 stars. Another book that I read was Pizza Girl by Kyoung Frazier. And it's marketed as a queer coming of age story, and we follow our main character, what's her name? I'm so sorry. I'm really horrible with names and they like fly over my head. I forget them right away. Now I feel bad. Well, she was Pizza Girl, so let's just call her Pizza Girl. Our main character, Pizza Girl, is a young woman. She's 18 years old, and yeah, a lot of things in her life are not going well at the moment. She is pregnant and she seems like she's not very happy about it. She doesn't seem excited. I don't think it was a pregnancy that was planned. On top of that, she works as a pizza delivery girl, which is not her dream job in this world. She has a mother and boyfriend who are very protective, very overbearing, and yeah, all in all, the relationship she has with her boyfriend doesn't seem like the happiest. So a lot of problems. She also deals with trauma that has to do with her father, who has died, who during his lifetime was an alcoholic and not a great father. So yeah, there's a lot going on with our main character, and it's in her condition that she's in that she meets Jenny. Jenny is a customer of the restaurant that she works at, and one day she just delivers a pizza to her and there's an instant connection. Jenny is also a mother. She's older, and yeah, she's very, very friendly, very nice, and she just talks to Pizza Girl and they become friends. But from Pizza Girl, it's maybe more than friends. She starts to become obsessed with this woman and starts to imagine a future with her. So yeah, that's the basic storyline. To me, I would say, yeah, queer coming of age story is maybe not the perfect description, because in my opinion, this book was more about mental health, how it is to have a depression maybe, or a burnout, and how to overcome this. I mean, I felt that it was a sad story, and it had only 200 something pages, but I felt really bad for our main character, and yeah, she was struggling a lot. The story to me was not amazing, but the book lived through the writing style. The writing style was very unique and very refreshing, very interesting. So I flew through it, and yeah, I give it all in all 3 out of 5 stars. I think that's a good rating for Pizza Girl. Motherthing by Ainslie Hogarth is the 3rd novel that I have here on my pile. It is a horror novel, and we follow our 2 main characters. Excuse me, I have to cheat. Ralph and Abby. Ralph and Abby are married, but really in this marriage there are 3 people, because Ralph's mother Laura is very overbearing and yeah, is in this marriage because she is, I would say, obsessed with her son, and she wants to make sure that she is his number one and not Abby. So there's always a lot of tension, and Abby herself, doesn't really get along with her, and yeah, it's just a bad situation altogether. Ralph's mother, at some point it's mentioned that she suffers from something like personality disorder, but it's not further explained. But yeah, his mother essentially had some mental problems too, and had an obsession with her son. One day, at the very beginning of this book, Laura dies though, and so Abby has this hope that now her relationship with Ralph will flourish, that they can finally move on and put this chapter in their lives behind them and really enjoy each other. But yeah, she didn't think about Laura, because Laura, the dead mother, has a mind of her own, and she returns in the form of a ghost and essentially haunts Abby and Ralph and makes their lives difficult. Ralph becomes depressed, and yeah, Abby has to watch it and doesn't really know what to do to help him. The first thing I want to clarify is that this is not really a ghost story in the traditional sense. So we don't have Laura coming back as a literal ghost flying through the house and scaring the inhabitants. I think it's more the idea that, yeah, she still haunts her son, and the memory of her and the grief and everything is making him very sick. And maybe there's some supernatural aspect in it too, but it's not like there is a ghost constantly lurking around the corner. I think what this book showed really well is what it means if somebody you love cannot give you back that love, and if you're desperate for that love, what that does to a person, how that turns somebody into a monster, into, yeah, something horrible, and leads them to do things that you would never expect. And I'm not talking about Laura, the mother here. I'm talking about our main characters. So there were parts in this book where, yeah, I was just shaking myself. There are sections that are very weird and gory, especially the ending. But all in all, I loved reading this book because the writing style to me was very unique, just like Pizza Girl, very refreshing, and I highlighted a lot of sections. So I just want to read one of them out here because I thought this section here was very meaningful and I want to share it with you. Just to give a little backstory, our main character Abby works at a long-term care facility. So yeah, she takes care of the old patients that live there. And in this scene, she's talking to her coworker. So her coworker is asking her, "How are you? How's Ralph?" "Oh, you know, I pull my coat over a hanger. Bereaved." "Right, of course. May I?" She opens her arms. I nod and I fall into them. "I guess everyone here must like to touch people, because otherwise, why would you get into this line of work?" "I love to touch people. I really do. I sometimes can't believe the way no one touches each other. How crazy it is that strangers have no idea what each other feels like. How the only strangers who ever touch you are paid to do it, like me here at work. But somehow, it still feels so generous to be touched that you need to thank the person touching you over and over again. Apologize for having a body that needs touching at all. How Mrs. Bondi did at first when I offered her relief with my hands. Rubbed cream into her sores, pulled the pain from her knuckles. Oh, thank you, Abby. You're so good to me." Maybe touching someone is the kindest thing you can do. Making a person feel like it's okay to touch them, that they're touchable and not disgusting, is the easiest and best way to make a person feel good in the world. So yeah, what can I say? There are sections like this that I just, yeah, loved reading about. I highlighted a lot. The story in itself was interesting. Parts of it were very weird, so if you don't mind that in a horror novel, I can 100% recommend this. I would give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. All right, moving on to The Lady of the Rivers by Philippa Gregory, another historical fiction novel that takes place during, yeah, the 1400s, I would say, in both France and England. The main character in this book is Agatha of Luxembourg, and we follow her story over the years. In the beginning, she is a young girl and she grows up in a relatively wealthy family in the part of France that was at that point in time controlled by England. So she was a young girl, and you would think a normal girl, but she actually has a very special heritage because one of her ancestors was the so-called goddess of the rivers, Melusina, which means that there are people in her family who possess a special gift, and Agatha is one of them. She has the gift of foresight. So sometimes she'll have visions and she can foretell things like the death of a loved one or other things like that. When she's a young girl, she encounters Joan of Arc, so the French revolutionary fighter, the girl that led an army in France to fight the English. And she, yeah, spends a lot of time with her, and that influences her life because she sees Joan of Arc, sees her bravery, what she did for what she believed in, and sees how eventually she's burnt at the stake. So that shapes Agatha's belief that a woman with special talents, with special visions, should be careful and shouldn't share it because at the time that was a very dangerous thing, and yeah, you could get burnt on the stake. So she's aware that her gift of being able to foretell the future is one of these things that, yeah, could become dangerous for her. So yeah, we follow her, as I said, through life, and at some point she is in England, she marries royalty and she moves to England, and she is serving at the court of Henry VI and his wife. And we see how life at the court was like, how it was like to serve a king and queen, especially a king who maybe was not a great leader, and what that meant. I thought that this book was fantastic in the beginning. I loved the aspect that we had witchcraft in here, some supernatural elements, and Jacquetta's special talent. And I really loved reading about it and about her life, where it took her, her first marriage and her second marriage. Once she was in England and serving at the court, the book, yeah, was a little less interesting to me, because it felt like it was the same thing over. Her, yeah, husband was constantly at war, she was constantly pregnant, and there were always problems with the king and queen that seemed to repeat themselves. So the beginning was fantastic. Later it was a little less interesting to me, but overall I could really picture Jacquetta and her life. I learned a lot about the time where she lived. I didn't know much about it, so if you're interested in the 1400s in England and France, I can highly recommend it to you. And yeah, I can say that even if I didn't like the end that much, the 400 pages never dragged. It was a fast-paced read. So I think I want to give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The author has written many other books, so I can say for sure that I will take a look at them, and I'm probably gonna read some more, because it was just interesting to learn about the history, and I'll take a look and see if there's another time period or another person that I find fascinating, and I will for sure pick another Philippa Gregory book to read about it. So yeah, that's my review for The Lady of the Rivers. And then last but not least, we have another Agatha Christie novel, and it is The Murder at the Vicarage. I have read many Agatha Christie mysteries, but most of them were short stories or involved Hercule Poirot. This is the first one that has Miss Marple as a main character, and I loved it. So we're essentially in the village in England where Miss Marple lives. And it's the kind of village where, yeah, everybody knows everybody's business, everybody knows more about you than yourself, and there's a lot of gossip. And especially Miss Marple and her friends, they love to gossip and they know everything. So that's her life. And yeah, one of the inhabitants of this village is, what's his name? Colonel Prothero. He's a local magistrate, and yeah, he's not very well liked. A lot of people have quarrels with him. He's a very, yeah, mean person, a very authoritative, who likes to show, yeah, that he's in charge, that he has power. And so a lot of people dislike him. And yeah, so one day when he's found dead, shot in the vicarage, which is essentially the priest's office, there are a lot of suspects, because a lot of people had a motive to want this guy dead. And so the police start investigating, but of course, only Miss Marple can lead them to the true killer. And yeah, I just loved reading about her. I love the character of Miss Marple, and I'm definitely going to read some more books that has her as the main character. I just love this idea of an old little woman who just sits there knitting something and gossiping and somehow solves a mystery while, you know, doing all of that. So that was great. I always try to guess who was the murderer. In this case, I was not able to until the very end. I didn't know for sure until Miss Marple solved it. So yeah, Agatha Christie did a fantastic job of hiding who it really was. So yeah, Agatha Christie, I love it. I'll read many more books by her. It was an easy 4 out of 5. I'm just I'm a Miss Marple fan now. I can say that. I love Miss Marple now. Alright, that's everything I wanted to show you guys. That was my April reading month. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. Let me know what you read in the last month. I like to hear it. Other than that, I just want to say stay safe, stay healthy, and till next time. Bye bye.